very good morning. You're watching Breakfast News on Rajya Sabha TV with me, Tina Jha. Let's start with the headlines first. Last day of Prime Minister's three-nation tour, Modi meets CEOs of South Korean giants, says a unified Asia will shape up the world. Delhi government directs all officers to not take orders directly from the Lieutenant Governor. Chief Minister to meet President today over what he alleges is Najib Jung's overreach. Rahul Gandhi's day 2 in Amethi. Congress Vice President has been attacking Prime Minister for ignoring the plight of farmers. Islamic State militants pushing towards Baghdad, say reports. Hundreds of fighters shelling and firing with weapons abandoned by military on way to the Iraqi capital. And European Union nations approve plans for a naval operation to go after the human trafficking networks in the Mediterranean Sea. Well, our top focus this morning, Prime Minister Narendra Modi will conclude his three-nation visit today as he spends the last day in South Korea. A slew of events await him a day after he addressed the Indian diaspora and met with the South Korean president yesterday. A short while back, Modi visited the Chichonge stream that is a model for purification of streams around the world. He, along with the South Korean president, also attended a business meet in India Republic of Korea CEOs Forum. Currently, he's meeting CEOs of Korean companies like Hyundai, Samsung, LG and POSCO. Yesterday, the two countries signed 7 agreements, including one on avoidance of double taxation. The two countries also upgraded their ties to special strategic partnership. Modi will depart for India later in the afternoon.
India sits an idea of capabilities can be put together. Though we have become the third biggest producer of steel, we need to add a lot of value in it. Your steel making capacity and our resources of iron ore can be put together. Your shipbuilding capacity and our agenda of port-led development can become driver of our growth. Infrastructure, including housing, is another field where we can work together in big way. In my last visit, I had gone to see your wonderful Samangam project. We have to create many such Samangams. Let us do this for a mutual benefit and with a win-win spirit. Friends, since my government has taken over, we are working day and night to create conditions for faster and inclusive growth. We want a quantum jump in all this. There is no time for incremental changes. The sectors which are strong in Korea are very important for the development of my country. Many of you are already present in India. For those who are not there, I extend an invitation to come to India and explore the opportunities. With your presence in India and through your interactions with our CEOs, you must already be knowing that we are doing and in which direction we are going. I would only throw some light on the size and scale of the opportunities. Water, transportation, railways, seaports, shipbuildings, electricity, including renewable, IT infrastructure and services, electronics, construction industry are all very promising sectors in my country. Just to give you some examples, we have planned to build 50 million houses by 2022. So one can think that I have to create one more Korea within India.
In fact, let's go across live to our correspondent Akhilesh Suman, who joins us from Seoul. Akhilesh, a very good morning. We understand the Prime Minister is addressing the CEOs Forum right now. After the POSCO aftermath, what do you think the Prime Minister is doing? What are the efforts being undertaken by him to attract investment in India? What is his reach to the CEOs?
In Korea also, and there is a great misconception that India doesn't have any land. And I think Prime Minister was trying to just diffuse this situation, and even some Indian industries were talking to Korean industries that this is not the problem. Land acquisition process is another thing, legislative thing that is going on in India. But for any industry that is coming from abroad, land is not a problem. Land is available there in the hands of the government. So this was the major thing that was being talked among the CEOs between India and Korea. And Prime Minister was also trying to tell them that the legislations in India has now become the friendly, and the legislation in India has now become friendly. So Korean might think to come to India and invest in industrial sector in something that can produce. The Prime Minister specific request was that invest in something that manufactures, that produces something in India, and that can give job to Indians, that can give job to Koreans, and that can be mutually beneficial. Prime Minister made it very clear that we don't just want financial and trade between the two countries. We want that Korean technology should be coming to India and establish something that can be productive for the Indian people, and that can create a situation in India that India becomes a manufacturing hub. And even the Korean president reiterated Prime Minister's wish, and she told that India has the capacity and India has all qualities to become a manufacturing hub. And she stressed that Korean companies are ready and Korean government is also ready. But there are some hiccups. There are some hiccups in Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement that is going to be reviewed, and that when Commerce Minister Nirmala Sitharaman will be coming to Korea next month or so, and these things will be decided. And after Comprehensive Economic Partners Agreement is done, I think the Korean investment might feel much more friendly and much more safe to come and invest in Indian infrastructure, Indian hardware sector, and many other sectors that creates some goods to produce.
Also, Akhilesh, we understand that this is the first CEOs forum between both countries. Any particular reason why it took so long for both countries to engage at the CEOs level?
Excuse me, I couldn't understand.
Akhilesh, we understand that this is the first CEOs forum between both countries. Any particular reason, any information on what took so long for both countries to engage at the CEOs level?
Yeah, actually CEOs meeting is very important, because I'm just at the place where CEO meeting is still going on, and we are staying in the lobby and talking to CEOs are also coming and talking to each other. So it is, I think, one of the what you say, people to people contact. So now this is CEO to CEO contact, business to business contact, and they are talking to each other, and they are trying to understand the Korean business situation and Indian business situation. And I could hear from many Indian CEOs, businessmen and their representatives who are telling the Korean CEOs and business representatives that, see, land is not a problem in India, finance is not a problem in India, and administration is not a problem in India. They are trying, Indian CEOs are also trying to assure Korean company that so things has become easy, things have changed in India, and now it is easier for collaborate. You can understand that Indian CEOs want collaboration from Korean industry, because so that there should be safety for Korean companies also, and there should be some benefit to Indian CEOs and Indian companies also. So now between mergers or maybe collaborations, joint venture. These are the situations that is coming up between Korea and India. And see, Koreans are a bit skeptic, and this is a skeptic country in some way or other, that they have thrived or their business for last 20 years, and then they feel skeptic about fully democratic country like India, where things are very open, media is very open, so everything that happens inside the country, inside the government, they know everything and they feel scared. So Indian CEOs are also trying to persuade them that though situations are not that what you hear from them, legislative process is the one thing, but the real situation is still there is a level playing ground for all CEOs, all companies. that may come from Korea. Yeah, Nina.
All right, Akhilesh, many thanks for joining us with all those details. Meanwhile, we're also being joined in the studio by Mr. Trividesh Singh Mani, who's a Senior Research Associate at the Jindal School of International Studies. A very good morning, sir, and welcome to Rajya Sabha TV. So as I was talking to my colleague Akhilesh, what do you think are the big gains, the big takeaways as far as Prime Minister's three-nation tour is concerned?
I think if you ask me, a lot of attention has been paid actually to China, to the China visit naturally. But the real gains, I think, are first of all, if you look at Mongolia, for example, this is the first visit by an Indian Prime Minister. And both in terms of, one is the strategic aspect, as message to China that, okay, we want good relations with China, but we're not going to buckle under pressure and we'll have our own independent, foreign policy. Second, the fact that, it fits in very well. If you look at the last year, there are a number of smaller countries which were not given the attention which they deserved. Like, perfect example is a place like Fiji. So in that context, I think we have a lot to benefit from smaller countries as well. And Mongolia is a perfect instance of that. You would have seen, not just in terms of soft power, but even in terms of the economic relations, in terms of natural resources, in terms of the strategic partnership. Most importantly, I think if you look at South Korea, this is one country, irrespective of the political regimes in India over the last 2 decades, which has invested heavily, and in spite of the problems, they, for example, POSCO is one issue which you mentioned. I think that was, and I think their apprehensions need to be allayed, their affairs need to be dealt with. But
certainly, so that was a huge setback.
Absolutely, but in spite of that, if you look at the levels of trade, in spite of the constraints, at about $17 billion, and of course the target is 40 billion, then you, apart from that, the level of investment by Korean companies and the way we just take it for granted that certain names have become like household names in India of big companies. So in the economic sphere, it's already there. Now we can, I think in terms, even in the strategic sphere, there is immense potential, because a lot of the fears which they have, for example, of North Korea, we have similar apprehensions about, the North Korea-Pakistan nexus which is building up. So that is one area we can build up. And if the fact that there is a joint CEOs forum, and as you said, it was the first one, I think that is a very good step, because currently whatever it is, the relationship, there has been no, things have happened largely on their own. Governments have tried. The current South Korean president was also chief guest of the Republic Day in 2014. But I think this thrust of, utilizing business, utilizing soft power, utilizing diaspora, that has clearly been a hallmark even of this visit. So if you look at whether, China, Mongolia and South Korea, in all the 3 nations, the Prime Minister reached out to the Indian community over there.
Certainly.
Now how they respond to it, it remains to be seen. But I think now, with the 1 year of the government being over, I think this was a good time. The world was also interested in the new foreign policy and what things are happening. After this, it's largely, what happens in the domestic sphere. So the economy will have to, while yes, apparently it has been said that, we're going to be the fastest growing economy and all, but a lot of logistical things on the ground need to be sorted out. Now investors are going to look at that. The first year any new leader comes, it's not just the current Prime Minister, there's always an interest. So if you go back to 2004, and even with Dr. Manmohan Singh, when he went to the US, for example, for the first time, or any other country, after it's largely domestic policies, and not only that, it's not just the policies, it's also the trajectory of economic growth. So if you have 3-4 years of good economic growth, I think that is what is ultimately going to really
Coming to the China visit, in terms of economy, it was a major boost. But do you think somewhere on the political gains we remain unclear still?
I think even in terms of economics, I think we overrate the relationship, because always, we first of all, we need to understand the Chinese psyche. I think the talk of an Asian century together is a bit optimistic and a bit misplaced, because the Chinese are, when they talk of an Asian century, it's, the Chinese are going to have an upper hand in that. They don't talk of China and India necessarily as equals. So what we really need is, we need to, partnership, it's in that context that partnerships with countries like South Korea, with the Mongolia, with Vietnam, with Indonesia, as a counterpoise to China, are very important. Nobody's saying get into conflict, but I think we need to understand that at this point of time, the Chinese certainly don't look at us as equals. And we need to, as I said, we need to revive ourselves to such a level where they begin to at least seriously take us as a challenge.
But for the Prime Minister, the focus was certainly on the economic front, and on that front, I think he's been able to achieve.
I think again it will not really, because see, for example, last year there was this talk about an industrial park which the Chinese were supposed to set up in Gujarat, and it's over there also it's facing a lot of obstacles and constraints and all. So as I said, ultimately it's what happens on the ground, and even in you have such a high trade deficit with the Chinese that in any case, unless they make some massive investments here, it's not really going to compensate for that. So
Right.
that is where your relationships with other countries in Southeast Asia, in East Asia, are very important.
All right. Many thanks, Mr. Trivedi
Thank
Desh
you.
Singh Mani, for
Thank
joining
you.
us this morning and sharing
Thanks.
those details.
Thank
With that, it's time for us to take a very short break here. But after that, the big fight that's brewing in the capital, fresh twist to the Kejriwal-Najib Jung face-off. Details in just a bit. Don't go anywhere.
Hello and a warm welcome to our special report, the program that brings you a ground zero view from whichever part of the country the Rajya Sabha TV cameras are travelling. It is the same village where the Telangana agitation actually began. We at Rajya Sabha TV bring you the first pictures of the landfall site. This is the main nerve centre where the legal battle for the Kaveri water dispute began. When you are moving around this Niyamgiri Hill area, there are 41 streams like these which you have to cross.
No one understands India better than we do. Watch special report only on Rajya Sabha television.
Welcome back. You're watching Breakfast News on Rajya Sabha TV. And it is Modi's visits abroad that Congress Vice President Rahul Gandhi is criticizing. He's on a 3-day visit to his home constituency, Amethi. Rahul arrived there on Monday, met farmers and raised the issue of the scrapping of a food park. He accused the centre of deliberately shutting down the project. Today he will be addressing a public meeting in Kasara village and will also inaugurate development work worth 5 crore rupees. The centre, however, rejected his charge on the food park, saying it was scrapped during the UPA tenure.
विजन था, सोच थी कि हम फूड पार्क लाएं, यहाँ पे 5-6-10 डिस्ट्रिक्ट्स का फायदा हो, किसानों का फायदा हो, मजदूरों का फायदा हो, मगर अब मोदी सरकार ने उसको छीन लिया और मुझसे नहीं छीना है, वो किसान से, मजदूर से, कमजोर लोगों से छीना है।
यूपीए की सरकार थी, उसी समय में जो है से फूड पार्क का निर्णय हो गया था कि इसको बंद कर दिया जाएगा। जो कंपनी थी उसने अपना हाथ खींच लिया था कि जो हमारे साथ में कंडीशन है वो कंडीशन में क्या कहते हैं कि हम नहीं कर पाएंगे, इसलिए फैसला क्या कहते हैं पहली गवर्नमेंट का था।
And let's now take a look at all the important events lined up for today in our segment The Day Ahead. BJP President Amit Shah will arrive in Kerala today. He is scheduled to address party workers in Thiruvananthapuram, who will be laying a siege to the state secretariat as part of the party's agitation against the Congress-led UDF government. The BJP is protesting against the alleged corruption in governance and the adjustment agitation by the CPIM-led opposition. He is also expected to have a brainstorming session with his party workers and sympathizers as part of preparations for the civic polls and assembly elections in Kerala. Today, the Supreme Court will hear the West Bengal government's plea seeking more time to hold elections to 7 municipal bodies. Polls for these bodies could not be held along with the 91 others in April. The vacation bench of the court had agreed to an early hearing of the matter. Earlier, the Calcutta High Court had declined the state government's plea, seeking more time, and directed the State Election Commission to conduct polls to these 7 local bodies by the 16th of June. The BCCI's technical committee, headed by Anil Kumble, is scheduled to meet in Mumbai today to take a call on the proposed changes in the domestic circuit for the next season. In its bid to push for more results in Ranji matches, the committee has proposed a few changes in the points format and the number of overs bowled per day in the Premier domestic tournament. The Kumble-led committee has suggested the number of overs to be increased from 90 to 95 per day in the 4- and 5-day games of the Ranji Trophy and also do away with the single point for salvaging a draw after conceding a lead. Now, the face-off between the Delhi Chief Minister and the Lieutenant Governor has reached the President's door. Arvind Kejriwal will be meeting President Pranab Mukherjee to appraise him on the issue of appointment of Shakuntala Gamblin as the acting Chief Secretary of Delhi. In the latest development, the Delhi government has instructed all its officers to not take any orders from the Lieutenant Governor's office without taking approvals from their respective ministers. The Delhi government had on Monday taken its confrontation with the Lieutenant Governor Najib Jung a step further by defiantly telling him that his unconstitutional orders regarding appointment of the key bureaucrats will not be complied with. In a letter to the Lieutenant Governor, Deputy Chief Minister Manish Sisodia wrote that the Delhi government will take up the matter to the Prime Minister since the Lieutenant Governor's directions are against the provisions of the law and the Constitution. Meanwhile, the Congress has called Kejriwal's behaviour irresponsible and childish.
I think Mr. Kejriwal is showing extremely childish behavior. And it's pathetic. I mean, government is run by the way the framers of the Constitution and the makers of the rules of India have ordained. You have to run through democratic systems, through processes. The bureaucracy has to be taken along. I mean, being elected does not mean you become an emperor and king. I think it's most irresponsible and reprehensible behavior on part of the Kejriwal government.
And amid the raging dispute over the appointment of Delhi's acting Chief Secretary, the Minister of State in the Department of Personnel and Training, Jitendra Singh, slammed the Aam Aadmi Party government for misbehaving with the civil service officers. He also stressed the need for dignified behaviour towards bureaucrats. Here's more.
As LG Kejriwal face off turns bitter, the DOPT that controls the IS cadre steps in. MOS Jitendra Singh stoutedly backed officers entwined in the controversy, hitting out at Delhi government, slamming it for what he termed a hullabaloo to politicize the matter.
We in the Department of Personnel and Training is concerned, and I being responsible for the Department of Personnel and Training, I would just like to reiterate that every appointment that is being made by the government is made with absolute transparency, absolute objectivity, and under certain set procedures and certain mechanisms.
The Congress pitched too with its criticism. The party lashed out both at the BJP and the AAP, accusing them of seeking political mileage at the cost of administration of the national capital.
They are behaving in a fashion which is totally unbecoming of the position they are holding. Whether the central government, Home Ministry or the State Chief Minister Mr. Kejriwal, they are making a mockery of the government.
The confrontation has taken bitter overtones. Tensions between the Chief Minister Kejriwal and LG Najib Jung well and truly out in the open. The open front for attack for old AAP critiques. Kriti Mishra, Rajya Sabha TV.
Let's now get to all the other national news and updates in our segment Nationwide. Former Union Minister and BJP MP S.S. Ahluwalia appointed as chairman of a joint committee of parliament to examine the controversial land acquisition bill. Almost the entire opposition and even some allies of the ruling NDA government are against the various provisions of the amendment bill brought by the government. President Pranab Mukherjee lauded the Constitution Amendment Bill relating to the land boundary agreement between India and Bangladesh. The President said that the unanimous vote on the bill from both houses conveys a strong message of friendship with its bordering nations. The National Green Tribunal extended its stay on banning old and polluting vehicles for another week. A report submitted by IIT Delhi professors contended that vehicles above 10 years give rise to a very small amount of pollution. However, the tribunal seeks more comprehensive and well-reasoned report to curb the air pollution in the national capital. And time for another quick break, but after that, former Thai Prime Minister Yingluck Shinawat's trial set to begin today. Details on that when we return. Do stay with us.
Tradition dating back centuries. A cultural heritage that inspires and warms at once. Magic that awes. Rajya Sabha television brings you events that embrace the wonders of India's classical arts. Conversations with the biggest names in the culture and music. Rajya Sabha television, democracy at work.
Welcome back, and time now for all the international updates. European Union nations have approved plans for a naval operation to go after the human trafficking networks.
Now today, less than 1 month later, we adopted the crisis management concept and the decision to establish the operation with headquarters in Rome and with Commander Rear Admiral Credentino. This is just the beginning of it. A decision to establish an operation means that now the operational planning starts.
Die Mission ist im Konzept heute, denke ich, wird im Konzept heute beschlossen werden. Jedenfalls gab es bisher keine Gegenstimmen. Die Diskussion läuft ja noch. Sie kann aber erst in den weiteren Stufen etabliert werden.
After gaining control of the city of Ramadi, Islamic State militants pushed east on Monday towards Baghdad. Hundreds of Islamic State fighters are reported to be marching towards the capital, shelling and firing with weapons abandoned by the Iraqi military. The Iraqi government has rushed reinforcements to shore up defensive lines meant to stop the terror group's advance. The US-led coalition also continued with its airstrikes in Ramadi, targeting the IS militia. A predominantly Shiite militia dispatched by Iraq's Prime Minister is also expected to join the fight soon, further swelling the ranks of anti-ISIS ground forces. The decision to mobilize the Hasht al-Shabi paramilitary force, also known as the Popular Mobilization Units, follows a request for help from the Anbar provincial officials, tribal leaders and the religious clerics. The same forces had helped the Iraqi army retake the city of Tikrit from the Islamic State in March. But their involvement once again has prompted fears of sectarian tensions in the country. Experts now fear that the capture of Ramadi, which is a gateway to Baghdad, leaves the Islamic State in a position to launch airstrikes against the capital. And more international news and updates in the World Wrap. The trial of former Thai Prime Minister Yingluck Shinawatra on negligence charges is due to get underway in Bangkok today. She's accused of dereliction of duty for her role in a controversial rice subsidy scheme. Yingluck has denied the charges against her and said they are politically motivated. She's expected to appear in person at the Supreme Court for the start of the trial. Sri Lankan President Maithripala Sirisena will oversee a military parade today to commemorate the 6th anniversary of the end of 3-decade war against LTTE. On Monday, Sri Lankan Tamils openly commemorated their war dead for the first time and marked the 6th anniversary of the end of the island's decades-long civil conflict. Hundreds of Tamils lit oil lamps and gave offerings of flowers during a ceremony that was held openly for the first time after the country's new government lifted a ban on commemorating the Tamil victims. Hundreds of pro-Houthi protesters took to the streets in Yemen's capital city Sana'a and demanded an end to the Saudi-led coalition airstrikes against that impoverished nation. The protest took place just hours after the Saudi-led coalition resumed airstrikes after the 5-day truce. The truce was announced after pressure mounted from the international community and aid agencies, warning that the humanitarian situation in the country was spiraling out of control and pushing Yemen to the brink of collapse. At least 50 people died while several others injured in a landslide in Colombia's northwest mountains. Search and rescue efforts are underway in the area. Colombian President Juan Manuel Santos also visited the area and met local officials and those involved in the search and rescue operations. Meanwhile, dozens are still missing after torrential rains caused a ravine to overflow and sent mud and water onto homes in the country's Antioquia department. And now all the sporting action in the sports beat. The Zimbabwean cricket team arrived in Lahore in the early hours today for their series against Pakistan. The tour includes 2 T20s and 3 one-day international matches. Zimbabwe are the first test-playing nation to tour Pakistan since a gun attack on Sri Lanka's team bus in Lahore in 2009 left 6 Pakistani policemen and 1 van driver dead. Armed security personnel guarded the airport and a large convoy of security vehicles escorted the team's buses as they drove to their hotel in the city. A 43-year-old American daredevil was killed in Yosemite National Park after attempting a flying skydive from the Taft Point. Slackline rocker and rock climber Dean Porter was among the 2 killed in a 7,500 feet descent base jumping accident. The bodies of Porter and another adventurer Graham Hunt were discovered on Sunday after friends reported them missing a day earlier. Former Grand Slam doubles tennis champion Bob Hewitt was sentenced to 6 years in prison by a South African court in Pretoria. He was found guilty of 2 counts of rape and a charge of sexual assault of minors. The Australian-born Hewitt was found guilty of assaulting 3 underage girls during his time coaching children in South Africa in the 1980s and 90s. Hewitt won numerous Grand Slam doubles titles during his career in the 1960s and 70s and was named to the International Tennis Hall of Fame in 1992. Well, that's all we have for you this morning. Goodbye. Thanks for watching.